Good evening, and thank you so much for your time tonight. The President, in his opening to the Zondo Commission, acknowledged, and he in fact described the fact that state capture had indeed taken place. There were warnings from some leaders, referencing in particular Fikile Mbalula in 2011, who was warning about state capture, but it wasn't taken seriously. It took a long time to unravel before it was seen for what it was. Is that truly an honest account of what has happened over the years? Because we know that there were others who were campaigning, including the veterans, who were raising serious questions about corruption in the organization, but were simply not being heard.
Well, I think we as Veterans League were very happy and pleased that the president of the ANC appeared in front of the State Capture Commission, and he was very honest in his opening remarks. And it's true that the ANC failed to take action, despite the fact that there were warnings in 2011 by Comrade Fikile Mbalula. But I think that time it was a question of patronage that existed within the African National Congress. And that is why the 54th conference of the ANC in Nasrec supported the State Capture Commission and said that the ANC should appear, and members of the African National Congress should appear in front of Zondo, the Vice President Zondo, so as to the Judge President, Vice Judge President Zondo, so as to clear the ANC's name, because it's not the ANC that is corrupt. And President Ramaphosa stated very clear that it's individuals who have been appointed to be public representatives who found themselves in an invidious position, who they themselves committed acts of corruption, but not ANC policies, but those individuals were not taken to task by the ANC. And so I think we as Veterans League were happy that he has appeared and gave an honest account of what's happening within the movement. That is why in all of our statements, and also in the January 8th statement, we said, let's cleanse the ANC. Let's ensure that we serve society with dignity and ensure that we get rid of corrupt elements within the African National Congress. That is why the Nasrec resolution came up with a step-aside resolution that those who are implicated in corrupt activities must step aside, and those who are criminally charged for corruption must definitely step aside, and so that they've been dealt with by the law enforcement agencies. And so that's what we did and at Nasrec conference, and so we're happy with that as Veterans League, and we're monitoring and taking part in all activities of the ANC and of the Veterans League to ensure that we bring back the integrity and dignity of the African National Congress.
When you talk about the fact that it wasn't the ANC in general that is corrupt, but it is in fact individuals within the ANC, these individuals don't exist in a vacuum. They are not appointed often by themselves, and they don't account to themselves. So what role then for the ANC to be accountable for the behavior of its own deployees, whether in government or state-owned institutions?
Well, as you know, that the deployees in government, they account directly to the president of the country because they are serving the country. But at the same time, they're also accountable to the African National Congress. And so if there's anything that is untoward that they're doing, the president has the authority to deal with them immediately. And of course, we as the ANC, we are in a position to raise the manner in which they deal with those issues which are relating to corruption. In the subcommittees that we have about 22 subcommittees that deal with economy, health, education, state security. In those committees, we are in a position to raise those issues of non-performance of certain ministers and sharply make sure that they are held to account for their activities. And so I think it's important for us to accept that corruption existed. It's important for us to say we're dealing with corruption now. And the 54th conference of the ANC said we should support the State Capture Commission, and every individual who is a member of the ANC must appear, who is being requested to appear in front of the State Capture Commission must definitely do so, because it's our job to ensure that we cleanse the ANC, we make sure that society's trust in the ANC is regained again.
Of course, Mr. Zikalala, corruption didn't exist in a particular era, as the president and perhaps even the ANC would like us to believe. Corruption still exists today and sometimes also perpetuated by members of the ANC.
Yeah, well, it's true. Well, the president gave a chronology of where corruption started, even made it very clear that during the apartheid era there was corruption. He made it clear also when he took over there was corruption. But at the same time, we as the ANC, because the ANC is the only vehicle that society has, a vehicle that will be able, that has intentions of delivering on society's mandate. And so we do agree and admit that corruption does exist, but we have to deal with that, with corruption severely, and make sure that comrades who are involved in corruption are held to account. What we are saying as Veterans League, we support the deployment committee, because without deploying capable, skilled, and ethical patriots, South African patriots, not only ANC members, into senior government positions is very important. We look at how the Singaporeans are dealing with the question of deployment. That's what we call meritocracy. They look at the question of integrity, the question of skills, the question of competence, and the question of accountability, especially on young people who are deployed in government and in parliament. And so I think we as the ANC, we've learned what has happened in the past, and we'll make sure that we serve society with dignity and diligence, and ensure that those who are found wanting within the ANC, definitely there's no room for them within the African National Congress.
But Mr. Zikalala, even on the argument of cadre deployment and the extent to which that is a viable policy or a worthwhile policy, as you've just mentioned, to pursue, we just heard in Parliament in the last couple of weeks that 35% of the senior managers that you're talking about that would have been deployed in some ways or another through this policy, 35% of those senior managers are not qualified to be in the post that they currently occupy.
Well, I agree it's a mistake on our side, and those managers who don't have the required competencies, definitely we must root them out, not in a sense of must kick them out. There are, within South Africa, we do have institutes that can be able to uplift the educational level of those managers. And so if they are found not being in the right positions, definitely those departments where they're employed, they must make an effort that they take them through education and training. We do have good facilities in South Africa in terms of training, especially black, white, and Indian managers. As the last time, we do have 4 million qualified and skilled people who can be able to do quality work. We can be able to ensure that we have an administration that's accountable to the public, and that service the public gives the public quality service. We do admit we have made mistakes, but I think we're in the process of ensuring.
Some of these things are beyond just mistakes. They are failures, and very dire failures for the capacity of the state. Because if you have 35% of senior managers not qualified to do their jobs and unable to execute their jobs, it ultimately speaks to the kind of efficiency of the state. And it's ordinary South Africans who bear the brunt of that failure.
No, actually, the president spoke about cadres who are skilled for purpose, who are fit for purpose. And so definitely we have to do that, because we are elected to serve society. The ANC has 1.4 million members, but it's only the 10 million South Africans voted for the ANC to win power. And so we are there to serve society.
All right. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. We seem to be having issues with that connection to ANC Veterans League President Snooky Zikalala. Apologies for that. We'll have to leave it there for tonight. And thank you for your time on News at Prime.